نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم آمين. Inshallah, we are continuing from ayah number 15 of Surah Nahl. As we know, the Surah Nahl, the meaning is bee, the honeybee particularly. Surah came down in late Meccan period, the period of persecution before Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, Sahaba Rizwanullahi ajma'in, migrated to Medina. So that is the migration, the hijrah, from where the Islamic calendar began. Before that period, they were living in Mecca, and the Meccan late period becoming tougher and tougher for them, especially after the passing away of Abu Talib, the chief of Quraysh. After him, the protection of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was gone, so the condition became even more worst. The surah came down, though in Makkah, but there is an ayah in the surah, ayah number 126, that came down later in Medina and were included in this surah. The subject of this surah, the central theme of this surah, if we see, talks about Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, and His complete authority over His creation. Because more and more people were inclined towards idols, and the inclination towards idols, one of the reasons that people cling to idols because of the closeness. Allah is Ghani, idol is closer. I can make idol, favor me. So to get his things done, to get away with it, or to make him hear, to be heard, this desire make people go closer to the closely placed idol than to one and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Tawheed and the complete authority of Allah was emphasized in this particular surah. Also, the patience has been, reminded, and to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, that be steadfast when it comes to patience. Patience was been emphasized. And also, Muslims were instructed to act with justice, wisdom, and forgiveness. Also, the Quraysh has been mentioned that they're going to be a fate of those who disbelieved in Allah, who rejected Him, what outcome they faced. So, encouraging them to reflect on the consequences of disbelief. Our surah also reminds about the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His countless blessings, including, the livestock, plants, rain, and other natural phenomena. So this is in the nutshell, the surah is going to be covering. The first ruku we read covered Iman bil Akhirah, the day of judgment, and the warning about the day of judgment and the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's as a proof for the creation and the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The signs have been used as an instrument to see. We use instruments to see reality. For example, something which is very small, we use microscope to see. But we don't use microscope to see radio waves, do we? No, we don't. What do we use to see? What instrument do we use to see radio waves? We have other such sensors and radars and other instruments to see, the hidden realities by using the instrument. Similarly, we don't use instrument to see the heart of a living person. We don't cut open to see the heart, to see the lungs. We just go and do the X-ray taken. We don't cut open to see the lungs or the heart or how the kidneys are functioning or what's wrong in the brain or vertebral column. Imagine you cut open somebody's vertebral column to find out what's there. Before, I remember when our teachers used to teach us, especially the surgery, that during abdominal surgery, a lot of places we read during abdominal surgery, this was discovered that this was also the condition. During cesarean section, this was discovered, this was also the condition, and the surgeon rectified that by such and such steps that the surgeon took. So the discovery was once the surgeon opens the abdomen or the body cavity and performing a procedure, and he discovers something else is there because we didn't have tools to see. So similarly, to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't need microscope, you don't need telescope, you don't need any other scope. Stethoscope, you don't need such scopes or tools or instruments to see. To see Allah, you need signs. And this is what this first ruku mentions about the sign of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second ruku, which we will continue today, started talking about the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now look at this possibility of life on this planet Earth is a big question today. It's a big question. And people worked in order to get answers. People worked. And when they worked and investigated, Allah made it like that. They got evidences, they gathered clues, the snippets of information they gathered, they make those from that snippets of information, they made knowledge out of it. And now that knowledge is working as a lens to see. So the knowledge developed. This was developable knowledge. This was discovered knowledge. And so the reality of this nature is coming in front of us. Remember, we Muslims, we knew the ultimate reality of this universe. We knew the ultimate reality. Today, we still know the ultimate reality, but we don't know any other part of the reality. We, the claimers that we know the ultimate reality of this universe, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we don't know any other realities of this universe. We know the secret of this universe, how it created, how it began, how it's going to end, but we don't know. The claimers of the ultimate reality doesn't know the other realities. Somehow our understanding of religion barred us from getting into this path. That had consequences, and we are facing the consequences. Now people are looking up to those who know immediate realities. For them, people are asking about the ultimate realities, and they are telling them what ultimate realities are. Instead of those who are actually custodians of the ultimate realities. Ruku number 2 talks about this subject. So we'll continue from ayah number 15. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وأنهارا وسبلا لعلكم تهتدون. And he, Allah, has created.
Doctor, screen share करें.
The screen has been shared and confirmed by other brothers. Somehow you check your system. The screen was confirmed by other brothers. that it was getting shared already?
जी बिल्कुल
Yes.
शेयर हो रही है.
Jazakallah. So we check the system, Mansur Sahab.
ठीक है, मैं देख लूँ.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وأنهارا وسبلا لعلكم تهتدون, and he has cast into the earth firmly set mountains lest it shifts with you, and made rivers and roads that you may be guided. Now here we need to understand that why Allah is telling us that he created mountains. Who knew? Who can argue with that? Is that a significant information to tell us, hey, the sky was created by Allah? Who would say that anybody else created it? Allah has casted the mountains firmly in earth, otherwise, lest it shift with you. Tamida bikum, it should shake with you. The stability of the crust of earth was ensured by the mountains. Allah is telling us why. We need to understand this is enough indication that right now for you is enough that you understand, you believe this is for you as a sign to believe, but you would be needing further investigation for your next generations. So you go deeper and deeper and deeper. The deeper you will go, the firmer your belief is going to be. If you don't go there, somebody else will go there. And then people will start looking towards that person because that person will become more knowledgeable. And the attitude of people towards other human beings who are more knowledgeable, they submit to them. And if any person comes up with knowledge, which is the condition of Dajjal, what's the difference between why people will accept Dajjal as God? Why? Because the power of his knowledge. People tend to submit to knowledge. They lock their minds and they prostrate to knowledge of another man. And they leave the thinking job to the person whom they have submitted their intellect to. So this is going to happen if you don't investigate further. So this ayah, just similar ayahs, the principle is there that this has been mentioned for us to open up, to take ahead. But somehow we did not move ahead of that. Some aqaid went out of proportion and defined the purpose of our life away from being the Khalifatul Ard. Somehow we shifted from, we had two roles, Khalifa and Abd. Two roles go hand in hand. Somehow we let go the Khalifa aspect of it, and we focus more on Abd aspect of it. And in Abd aspect of it, we only focused on worship because that is the easiest way we chose. That's easy. If Abd is to establish Deen of Allah and to sacrificing your life, it's a difficult path. But if the meaning of Abd is just to worship and come back home, a couple of hours of worship, in Ramadan especially, you stay up a couple of hours, you do worship, come back home, you're tired, you sleep. Well, man, you really enjoy that whole ordeal. So this is what we chose. We chose this. So let me continue. Can't spend that time on one ayah to move on. وَعَلَامَاتٍ وَبِالنَّجْمِ هُمْ يَهْتَدُونَ, and landmarks, and by the stars they are also guided. أَفَمَن يَخْلُقُ كَمَن لَّا يَخْلُقُ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ, then is he who created like one who does not create? So will you not reminded? Now, Quraysh has been spoken here, but this Quran is for rest of the times, for rest of the people. So if we are going out to invite people to believe in Allah, We need to talk to them this language. Show them the signs that, hey, look. When we show them the sign that, look how rain falls, they say, forget it. Let me tell you how the rain falls. I'm professor in UFT or professor in, other universities, and I know better how the rain works. What are you going to tell me? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? That how are not acquiring knowledge, which Quran is using as an instrument, as a tool to make people believe, we just shut them down. We shut the whole faculty down. Our Islamic universities, as we call madaris or Darul Ulum, is not research centers on these ayahs, are not. In fact, let me tell you something which is not a good news. When Aqliya came in the history of Muslim thought, when Aqliya came, it was shut down through the power of the kings and traditionals. But Aqliya is coming again. And this time is going to challenge Ilmul Kalam. Ilmul Kalam. And this is going to be a really big mess because with the use of the tools of artificial intelligence and which just rationally conclude things, this is going to be a challenge, a big challenge for Muslim scholars. I think most of them should wind up their business. It's going to be a big storm coming up, and the truth will prevail. So those who are clinging to the truth will survive. أَفَمَنْ يَخْلُقُ كَمَنْ لَا يَخْلُقُ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ? Is he who creates like one who does not create? So will you not be reminded? Then do you not ponder or think or reason? وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And if you should count the favors of Allah, you could not enumerate them. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا تُسِرُّونَ وَمَا تُعْلِنُونَ. And Allah knows what you conceal and what you declare. وَالَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ لَا يَخْلُقُونَ شَيْئًا وَهُمْ يُخْلَقُونَ. And those they invoke other than Allah creates nothing, and they themselves are created. أَمْوَاتٌ غَيْرُ أَحْيَاءٍ وَمَا يَشْعُرُونَ أَيَّانَ يُبْعَثُونَ. They are in fact dead, not alive, and they do not perceive when they will be resurrected. So idols, other deities, saints, other godly men, which you are invoking to save you, they're dead. And they don't perceive what you're saying. إلهكم إله واحد فالذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة قلوبهم منكرة وهم مستكبرون. Your God is one God. But those who do not believe in hereafter, their hearts are disproving and they are arrogant. Reason is not given that why they are denying the hereafter. Other places it does. Here the condition of their heart is mentioned, that their heart in the state of inkar, mukiratun. They are in the state of inkar and they're arrogant. They're arrogant. لا جرم أن الله يعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون إنه لا يحب المستكبرين. Assuredly, Allah knows what they conceal and what they declare. Indeed, He does not like the arrogant. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ مَاذَا أَنزَلَ رَبُّكُمْ قَالُوا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And when it is said to them, what has your Lord sent down? They say, legends of the former people. Legends of the former people. Now the Quran, has been recited. It's there. It has become reality now. Cannot be denied. When thing occurs in the timeline, when an event takes place in the timeline, it cannot be undone. In this manner, time is linear for us. For the creation, time is linear. Any event occurs, it cannot be undone. Let it be a good event or a bad event. This is the context for which this is mentioned, that they don't believe in Akhirah. Because they don't understand this aspect, this law, this attribute of the timeline, the dimension time. You do an action, it creates an event on the timeline, on the fabric of timeline. It doesn't go away. Some are big, some are small. But Allah will bring that thing together. So this is the whole point. لِيَحْمِلُوا أَوْزَارَهُمْ كَامِلَةً يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَمِنْ أَوْزَارِ الَّذِينَ يُضِلُّونَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَزِرُونَ. That they may bear their own burdens. The day of judgment, that's the reason, that they may bear their own burdens in full on the day of resurrection, and some of the burdens of those whom they misguide without any knowledge. So they will not only they will not only bear or lift the burden of their sins completely, and also the sins of those whom they misled. Unquestionably, evil is that which they bear. Now, Quran talks about بِغَيْرِ عِلْم, بِغَيْرِ عِلْم, يُدِلُّونَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ عِلْم. They mislead people without knowledge. That's the dispute. Lack of knowledge. What human mind does, fill in the blanks. We fill the remaining part of the knowledge in order to create a narrative. This is how brain works. The language model in our brain, this is how it works. We get snippet of information, we complete the fill in the blanks, and because using our past experience and past knowledge, we fill in the blanks and create a narrative, and we store the narrative and the idea the narrative brings. Now, this is how human mind works. This can be used positively, can be used negatively. So these people use the same faculty. Some people became nice. They have skill of creating rhetorics. Skill of creating rhetorics. Rhetoric, effective language that moves people, that convinces people. That is a skill. They create rhetorics to make their narrative more believable. If you have that skill, then what you're going to do? And this is what we saw. Religious leaders, please pay attention. Religious leaders used this skill and took the share of humanity out of this whole humanity. Everybody took its share. They used the skill, picked up a niche, and plucked the humanity out of that niche. Who used to do that? Rasul used to do that. This was a job of Rasul. This was not a job of any other person. If you do that, if any other people start doing it, it's going to be a mess. And we saw that in the last 1400 years past in Islam, and throughout humanity, we see why we have sects. This is the reason we have sects. يُضِلُّونَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. They mislead people without knowledge. They don't have knowledge. What do? They pick up the information, which are facts. They collect them together, fill in the blanks, create a narrative, use the rhetoric to convince people on their narrative that, my narrative is true. What do after that? They pluck the share of humanity out of that. Now, this scholar has this much following, that has this much following. This says this is right. This says this is the right way of doing things. Everybody used the rhetoric, his own narrative, and pluck the share of humanity out of it. So this is how this process works. Ala sa'ama yazirun. Unquestionably evil is that which they bear. That without knowledge, they are misguiding people, and they will bear on the day of judgment the burden of their sins and the people whom they misled. قد مكر الذين من قبلهم فأتى الله بنيانهم من القواعد فخر عليهم السقف من فوقهم وآتاهم العذاب من حيث لا يشعرون. Those before them had already plotted, but Allah came at their building from the foundation. So the roof fell upon them from above, and punishment came to them from where they did not perceive. So this is a very beautiful comparison, that the evil plots in front of Allah is nothing. Allah just, as he says, "Paron tale zameen nikal le." This is how Allah can destroy the whole plot from on its own, and the roof falls on its own. ثم يوم القيامة يخزيهم ويقول أين شركائي الذين كنتم تشاقون فيهم قال الذين أوتوا العلم إن خزي اليوم والسوء على الكافرين. Then on the day of resurrection, he will disgrace them and say, where are my partners for whom you used to oppose the believers? Those who were given knowledge will say, indeed, disgrace, disdain, and evil are upon the disbelievers. Now, we see that Allah has been telling us in this Quran places where on the day of judgment, the nations will be called. But the question is, if they would have called during the lifetime, a lot of them could have been saved. So the answer we get from scholars is Allah is testing you. Okay, so Allah is testing you, enough warning you in your lifetime. You don't pay heed. There's no biological or physical evidence will pop up till the point that you die, and then boom, you see the day of resurrection is. Then you will regret that. Hey, send me back. This is the whole ordeal. This ordeal is pretty rough to accept for a lot of people. And why they feel difficulty in accepting it? Because the balance of compassionism, of no, not the compassionism, the balance of the attribute of compassion of Allah is heavier in their mind. So this is the subject of Kalamullah. I mentioned before that how the Kalamullah is going to sorry, not Kalamullah, Ilmul Kalam. Ilmul Kalam is going to be a game changer for future, as it came first when the Aqaliya was at play, and different sects of Aqaliya, that came that propped out of Aqaliya, different thoughts, school of thoughts came out of Aqaliya, the movement of the rationalism of Muslim thought. You may call it Aqaliya as a rationalism. So here, if you see that it's difficult for people to comprehend that why enough chances are not given, or why the chances are not given in terms of biological, physical signs and chances to a person who ends up on the day of judgment, and then he will be able to see. It's not befitting to a compassionate God. This whole deal of judgment, that your life is a test. the chances given in this test is it's not adequate. At the time of the Prophet, it is adequate because he's showing physical miracles. But after the Prophet is gone, the chances are more like an arguments. You argue a lot that Musa alayhi salam walked through, between the parted sea. You can argue, you can establish a good case of through words, arguments, but no physical or biological evidence to judge. On the basis of that, the test on the basis of this argument, which lacks physical experience or physical, signs, makes a case to be on the day against the compassion of God. So this is, the general argument which I see when I speak to people, that what's wrong for them to accept that this life is a test. So this is not their words, but this is my understanding. This is what people think, that this problems them. That how a compassionate God, and the whole idea of this test is difficult for them to comprehend, out of the compassionate God and then this tough punishments. So now keep this thought in mind and then read this ayah. Then on the day of resurrection, he will disgrace them and say, where are my partners for whom you used to oppose the disbelievers? Those who were given knowledge will say, indeed, disgrace this day and evil are upon the disbelievers. So on the day of resurrection, this idols will come in front of them, will be brought in front of them, or will be questioned that where are those idols which you used to believe on. So here, if you see the faculty of human thought that has been invoked is the seriousness. Seriously monitor, seriously research the evidence, seriously research the evidence that who is a reliable deity. So this is an emphasis on someone who is seeking the ultimate truth. So inshallah, it's time. I have to leave it here. And the subject is a very favorite subject of Quran. It brings up time and again about resurrection, about day of judgment, about the test which humanity has to is going in this dunya, and we will be discussing more on the grounds of rational grounds, keeping the ilmul kalam in mind, so that it can give us better understanding for what is going to come. I mean, these subjects are going to be, it was been discussed, but due to social media, they're spreading a lot and is getting, more and more into discussion using such analytical tools which are coming up. So inshallah, we'll stop here, ayah number 27, and inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow from ayah number 28. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب اغفر وارحم أنت خير الراحمين. رب هب لي من الصالحين. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالإيمان واشرح صدورنا للإسلام. اللهم أرني حقيقة كل أشياء كما هي. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين.
آمين.